Hi, Kyle here, back with another video from Leadership Development That Works. No nonsense, practical advice. It's going to help you be a better leader. So today I want to focus in on feedback, and more specifically, how do you receive feedback as a leader? So often we spend a lot of time on how to give people feedback, and we tend to ignore the other half of the equation, which is just as important. How do you receive feedback as a leader? Because how you receive feedback as a leader is critical to the relationship you have with that person that's giving you the feedback, but it also has a ripple effect in the overall communication dynamic of the team you're leading. So it's really important to get that right. So before we dive deep on that, I want to ask you to reflect on a time when you've worked for a leader, or maybe you're working for a leader like this today, who, when you took that risk to give them feedback, got defensive about it, got combative, shut down the conversation, changed the topic, said what they thought you needed to hear, threw up all those things at you, or one or more of those things. Bottom line is, you knew they weren't receiving the feedback you were giving. How did you feel when you walked away from that conversation? Chances are you felt frustrated, you may have felt angry, but even more critically, you probably said to yourself, I'm not going to take that risk again. I'm not going to put myself through that. Next time I'm going to keep it to myself. Let's think about that for a second. So what are the ripple effects of that? So the team member walks away from a negative feedback conversation and they make the decision that they're not going to take that risk again. How does that manifest itself? Well, it can go a number of different ways, none of them positive. They could, next time something comes up, instead of having a conversation with you about it, they may have a conversation with their team members, they may have a conversation with members of other teams, other leaders, but they're not coming to you with it. Or they may say to themselves, they just sit on it and not say anything and stew on it, which isn't good either, because that could affect the energy level they bring to work and ultimately affect the performance of the work they're doing. So none of those manifestations or ripples from negatively responding to a team member giving you feedback are good, right? So beyond that immediate ripple effect with that particular team member, what about the broader consequences? The ripples that go beyond that team member when we look at and think about the overall communication dynamic of the team. By ineffectively receiving feedback, you are modeling a negative process with the team. And by shutting it down, what you're doing is you're inadvertently, as a leader, contributing to this negative communication dynamic on the team, where people don't communicate directly with each other when they have feedback or a problem. They communicate with everybody else or hold on to it, but never the person they have a problem with. The reason they don't do that is you set the example. You've modeled that. So let's talk about how to turn that around and get that ripple effect going in a positive direction. So the first thing you want to do when somebody takes the risk to give you feedback as a leader is you want to at least stay neutral. Ideally positive, but if you can't get there, at least stay neutral. And the frame of mind you want to be in is stay neutral and get more information. Ask clarifying questions. That is really a critical point here, because that helps your mind stay constructive, right? It keeps you out of getting into that taking it personal, reactive, emotional response, and it keeps your mind in a more constructive place. It also keeps the conversation in a more constructive place. By asking clarifying questions, you're getting more information. You're always better getting more information. And so with that information, now you have something that you can consider and take a hard look at in terms of this feedback you're receiving. So you want to stay neutral, get more information. You want to be in that mindset. You want to show gratitude, thank them for coming forward. And you also want to let them know that you're going to consider it and you're going to come back to them. And it's really critical you do that, because that's your opportunity to continue to build the relationship. You want to close the loop. So maybe you don't take all of the communication or feedback you receive and make wholesale changes. Maybe you make a few changes here and you don't over here. That's okay. Nothing says you have to take the feedback and do everything that's in there. What you do want to do as a leader, though, is you want to look at, are there themes in feedback I'm receiving from not only this person, from other people? If there are themes, then I need to consider maybe doing something about that. Either way, you want to come back to this person and you want to close the loop. You want to share with them that A, you appreciate that they took the risk, you've considered it, and here's what you've decided to do. Put yourself on the other side of that. If you had a leader that closed the loop with you like that and came back around and had a sincere conversation with you about that, wouldn't you feel pretty good about that? Wouldn't that deepen the relationship? Hey, this person took this seriously. They were sincere enough to consider it. And here's what they're talking about they're willing to do, and here's what doesn't make sense. But at least they're coming back around and having that conversation with me. Really critical that you close that loop and don't let that hang out there. Bottom line is, by taking these positive steps in how you receive feedback, you're keeping the communication open. You're modeling how you want them to receive communication when other team members give them feedback. And you're setting an example that constructive criticism and regular feedback are accepted parts of how this team functions. Now you've turned that into, instead of a negative, circular, negative communication loop, you've turned that into a positive, functional communication team where people communicate with each other and give feedback to each other and resolve problems and issues with each other like adults, which is really what you want as a leader, right? And when you do all of that, by embracing feedback and fostering open communication, you're going to create a more productive team. And that's really the goal, right? So consider what I've talked about today and really be open to how is it you receive feedback and the different tips that I provided. So neutral, get more information. Ask those clarifying questions. Show gratitude and thanks for the person taking the risk to give you the feedback, and then close the loop on the conversation. Come back to them, letting them know you heard them, and here's what you've decided to do about it. If you have found value in this video, please like and subscribe. It helps get the information out to more people. Thank you for your time.